This is Manny from the Fort as Academia, and today I will be reviewing Little Nightmares 2. Little Nightmares 2 was set before the events of Little Nightmares 1. The franchise was developed in Sweden by Tarsia Studios, formerly known as Team Tarsia. In 2014, Tarsia Studios announced that they were working on a new intellectual property titled Hunger for the PlayStation 4, but later changed it to what we know as today. Little Nightmares, which was released on Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch platforms, and published by Bandai Namco Entertainment. Little Nightmares 2 has been released on all of those platforms alongside PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S, and Xbox Series X. Tarsia Studio also developed Little Big Planet for the PlayStation. We start off with the protagonist, Mono, waking up from a dream where he was attempting to reach a door at the end of a very long corridor. He wakes up in the middle of the wilderness, and we make our way towards a cabin where we eventually see Six and free him. As we move along with Six, we come across a huntsman who we have to flee from, and during this time we come across difficult challenges that we constantly have to get over or get past. Eventually the story leads us to the city, where we find ourselves in a school trying to navigate through it while attempting to rescue Six from porcelain bullies who earlier kidnapped him. During this journey, you're tasked to kill, typically with a hammer, porcelain children, while also evading a very persistent teacher while using stealth, and at times having to outrun her very long and outstretched neck.
Sir!
After leaving the school, we eventually end up at a hospital where mannequin-like patients are your most troublesome obstacles, while a dismembered hand is the most frustrating one. A large doctor spends most of his time on the ceiling as we try to avoid him and creep past him, and eventually have to deal with him personally. Throughout the story, Mono constantly puts his hands on working TVs, attempting to go through it, but Six eventually always pulls him out, until one time a very tall, thin man comes out of it and kidnaps Six. We spend the rest of the story going through people's homes, going on top of roofs, attempting to get to the signal tower in order to rescue Six. Although there's a bit more that happens in the story, I will stop there in regards to the plot summary, as I feel like it'll be too much of a spoiler, and I feel like the ending is really great and really important to the story, that I will just leave it at that and allow you to play it yourself. The visuals throughout the game are captivating and outstanding, and are often reminding me of a Tim Burton film. Automatonophobia, the feel human-like figures, is used quite well throughout the game. We often see it in other shows and medium, particularly in Doctor Who and Attack on Titan, so on and so forth. In Little Nightmares, we often get shots of the scenery beyond Mono and Six, looking captivating and well thought out. We have a scene where Mono and Six are running around the city in the rain, and in the background we see a bunch of bodies falling off from the flats beyond it, and it seemed quite random, but we later get onto the roofs and find ourselves walking past people about to jump off, and I found it really well and interesting and engaging how it's brought all back together. Tarsia also did a good job in maintaining the feel of eeriness, hopelessness and dread throughout the game. This is best captivated when your character respawns and is found sitting in a fetal position. This highlights the fear that dwells within Mono and Six, curled up on the floor, afraid to move forward, as if they were scared little children. Use of sound effects plays a big part in adding to the creepiness of this game. No one has any speaking part unless you count Mono calling out for Six as one, but no one speaks apart from that. And I think that's really important to the story. It just adds that little bit of element of creepiness, and it shows a bit more horror than it would have if people were actually talking. So the game relies most on its sound effects, and the sound of the rubbery-like material stretching in the form of the teacher's necks is a perfect example. Little Nightmares 2 plays as a 2.5D platformer, as in it doesn't necessarily play in the traditional back and forth, up and down route that platformers have. You're allowed to explore your surroundings a little bit more, even though you're very limited to where you can actually go. At the beginning of the game, they offer a very engaging tutorial of how you use your character while progressing the story before making it a bit more enjoyable, seeming like it's part of the story rather than it being, oh, this is what you have to do, this is a tutorial. It's a tutorial without feeling like a tutorial. As it doesn't play like the traditional 2D platformer, I did come across issues with mostly jumping onto things and attempting to get a hold of them by grabbing onto them. Even when I felt like I was aligned, and all I had to do was a forward jump to grab onto the tool that I was attempting to jump onto, I found myself missing my target, and that caused quite a bit of frustration. This apparent issue also when attempting to attack the porcelain children or the dismembered hand. I often missed the target and it left me confused, as it was difficult to measure the distance of yourself and the target during this game. The puzzles were very entertaining but not difficult to do. At times the bare minimum of effort was needed to solve it. One part that was frustrating throughout the game was when you were trying to move with stealth. You were trying to avoid the things in your surroundings. You didn't want to get captured, you didn't want to get found. The thing that was frustrating about that is that when you were doing it with 6, it didn't matter what 6 was doing. 6 could have been in the line of vision. It wouldn't matter because the people or the things that you were avoiding would not have reacted to her. And to me, that took quite a bit away from the realism of the story, and to me it feels like a bit of an oversight that could have been fixed. There should have been consequences of 6 being in the line of vision of the people that you're avoiding. My final thoughts is that it's a really, really good game, especially visually. There are times throughout the game where I wouldn't mind just sitting there watching the scenery behind me and around me and just appreciating that, because you can tell that they put in a lot of effort into making the game look really good visually, and that is something that I really, really appreciate. Stuff that I would improve on the game is stuff that I mentioned earlier, specifically around the gameplay. Something else that I would have liked is for the game to have been a bit longer, perhaps giving me a few more side quests. If not that, then giving us 1 or 2 more chapters, just to make the enjoyment last a bit longer, because you can sit and play this game for 3 to 3 hours and complete it. It's not a long game to play, and I wish just a bit longer would have just added a little bit more for me personally. But yeah, this game reminds me of a good film that I like, that I would like to go back to it for the visuals and the story. So the final grade that I would give this game overall is a B+.